Meanwhile, relations between Australia and China have hit rock bottom. A social media post has once again unleashed a fierce war of words between the two countries, each side unwilling to relent. Meanwhile, China, which is Australia's biggest wine export market, has introduced hefty tariffs on Australian winemakers. The decision has triggered global support for the Australian wine industry. Parliamentarians and government bodies in at least 19 different countries are encouraging people to drink Australian wine. All that and more in our next report.
A face-off over COVID-19 investigation.
We did in no way ask for confrontation. It was an investigation that we asked for.
A diplomatic spat over a crackdown on Australians.
I and the government are very sad and concerned that an Australian citizen, Mr. Gambhir, has been sentenced to death in China.
A bitter war of words over a Twitter post.
The Chinese government should be totally ashamed of this post. It diminishes them in the world's eyes.
And a renewed dispute over Chinese sanctions on Australian wine.
China's decision today to impose tariff on the wine industry is deeply disappointing and disproportionate.
China's relations with Australia are at their lowest point in decades. Tensions between the two countries have reached a tipping point. For months, Beijing and Canberra have been engaged in a conflict on multiple fronts. One of them is over China's decision to impose stringent measures on Australian wine. The Chinese Commerce Ministry has introduced anti-dumping tariffs of up to 200% on wine imported from Australia. The impact of these tariffs could be severe. China is the top wine export destination for Australia. It accounted for 39% of Australia's wine exports as of September 2020. The Chinese regime says the decision has been taken to protect the interests of domestic industries. The Australian government says it is purely political vendetta.
It is of great concern that China has taken this action, and it is an action that comes on top of an accumulation of other actions during the course of this year in particular. Australia defends to the hilt our winemakers, their integrity, and the commercial, market-based proposition and environment in which they operate.
Australian winemakers are bracing for tremendous losses. Australia's allies, meanwhile, are voicing support, vowing to down a glass to lessen the impact of Chinese sanctions. Taiwan has pledged to buy Australian wine. The Taiwan Ministry of Foreign Affairs says it is serving freedom wine in solidarity with Australia. The U.S. National Security Council has also extended its support. It says Australian wine will feature at a White House reception this week. In fact, support is pouring in from across the world. More than 200 MPs from 19 different countries are encouraging people to drink Australian wine. Stand against authoritarian bullying is their message. The Australian government too has started its pushback against China. On November 30th, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian posted this image on Twitter, claiming to show an Australian soldier holding a knife to the throat of an Afghan child. Australia lashed out at China, calling the image falsified and the post repugnant. It sought an apology. China offered none. Australia wanted Twitter to remove the image. That didn't happen. So on Tuesday night, the Australian Prime Minister took to the Chinese social media platform WeChat to criticize Beijing's actions. The platform was quick to censor Scott Morrison's message, but it had already been read by 50,000 WeChat users. A rattled Chinese Foreign Ministry responded with more bluster.
Australia showed that their goal is to protect their value. I want to raise a question. What is the value that Australia wants to protect? Do the released and proven crimes committed by Australian soldiers in Afghanistan fit their value? Australian soldiers killed innocent citizens and children, and yet does not allow others to comment and criticize on it. Is this fitting of Australia's value?
China's assertive foreign policy has unsettled its bilateral ties with Australia completely. The two nations are unlikely to see eye to eye for a long time to come. Bureau Report, WION World is One.